The call comes in at 11:44 p.m. on January 19, 2023. The dispatcher on duty at the Washtenaw County Emergency Communications Center has taken hundreds of calls from frightened people. She will later say this one was different not because of what Marcus Reed said, but because of the quality of the silence between his words. The caller is male, young, breathing in the specific pattern of someone who has been running and has not stopped moving since they started. He says, "I need police, I need my roommate, he's killing him." The dispatcher says, "Sir, can you give me your address?" He says, "I ran, I'm 2 blocks away, I can't, he's in the apartment." The dispatcher says, "Sir, I need you to slow down for me." "What is your address?" He gives the Packard Street address. He says, Tyler he had a saw. Cole was on the floor. I walked in and Tyler he stops. The dispatcher says, "Is the person in danger still at that address?" He says, I ran. I didn't, I just ran." The dispatcher says, "You did the right thing. Can you stay on the line with me?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Yes." And then he is quiet for 3 seconds that are harder to listen to than anything he said before them. He had a saw. That is what Marcus Reed told the 911 dispatcher at 11:44 p.m. In the middle of barely controlled breathing, in the middle of sentences he could not finish, that specific detail arrived fully formed because it was the detail that had fixed itself to the inside of his vision from the moment he walked through that door, and it would stay there for months. Marcus Reed had come home 40 minutes early because his shift at the restaurant where he worked had been cut short. 40 minutes. On any other night, he would have walked in at 12:25 a.m. Tyler Dunn was not finished. He had not cleaned up. He was not ready. He did not know anyone was going to walk through that door. Today we go through everything: the night of January 19th, the investigation that built around what Marcus saw, the man who killed Cole, Nance and why, and the trial in which Marcus Reed walked into a courtroom and told 12 jurors exactly what he had seen looking at Tyler Dunn across a room for the second time. Cole Nance was 25 years old. He had grown up in Traverse City, Michigan, and had come to Ann Arbor 2 years earlier for a graduate program in environmental science at the University of Michigan. His friends described him as easy to underestimate, quiet in groups, precise in one-on-one conversation, the kind of person who remembered what you had said 3 months later and followed up on it. He played chess online with his father every Sunday. He texted his mother on weekdays. He had a 6-year plan for a research career that he had written out in a notebook and kept updating. He had moved into the Packard Street apartment 8 months before January 19th. He had found it through the university's off-campus housing board. He had not known Marcus Reed or Tyler Dunn before moving in. By January, he knew Marcus reasonably well and Tyler Dunn less well. Tyler worked irregular hours, kept to himself, and had a quality that Cole had mentioned to his mother in a text message 12 days before his death. He had said Tyler was strange in a way he could not explain, that it was nothing specific, and that he was thinking about looking for somewhere else to live in the spring. That text message is in the evidence record. 12 days before January 19th, Cole Nance told his mother he was thinking about moving out. He did not explain what strange meant. He did not get the chance to. Marcus Reed was 24 years old, a Ypsilanti native who had moved to Ann Arbor for work and had been at the Packard Street apartment for 14 months. He worked the dinner shift at a restaurant on Liberty Street, Wednesday through Sunday, coming home typically between midnight and 1 in the morning. He knew Cole better than either of them knew Tyler. They had a routine of overlapping in the kitchen on evenings before Marcus's shift, brief, easy conversation over whatever Cole was cooking. He told investigators that Cole was one of the better people he had met in Ann Arbor. He said it the way people say things when they are sitting in a police interview room an hour after something that has not fully arrived yet. Tyler Dunn, who he appeared to be. Tyler Dunn was 26. He worked as a freelance web developer, intermittently, from his room. He had been on Packard Street for 5 months, the most recent of the 3 to move in. His background check at move-in had been clean. He was quiet. He paid rent on time. He had no documented history of violent behavior. He had, in the months before January 19, developed what he believed was an invisible tension with Cole Nance over money that Cole owed him from a shared utility payment. The investigation would establish that the utility payment in question was $47. Cole had said he would pay Tyler back and had not. Tyler had not reminded him. He had, instead, spent approximately 6 weeks moving toward January 19. $47. The investigation would document the full depth of Tyler Dunn's response to $47. We will get there. But I want you to hold that number the same way we held 22 minutes in the last episode. Because the gap between $47 and what happened on Packard Street on January 19 is the specific subject of this case. The 40 minutes. Marcus Reed's shift on January 19 was cut at 11:15 p.m. a slow Thursday night. The kitchen manager had sent 2 servers and a busser home. Marcus clocked out, changed his shoes, texted a friend about weekend plans, and left the restaurant at approximately 11:25 p.m. The walk to Packard Street was 18 minutes. He had his earbuds in. He was listening to a podcast. He was thinking about whether to make food when he got in or just go to bed. He arrived at the apartment's front door at 11:43 p.m. He used his key. He pushed the door open. What Marcus Reed saw when he walked through that door is documented in 3 places: his initial 911 call, his statement to Washtenaw County Sheriff's investigators taken at 1:17 a.m. on January 20th, and his testimony at trial. The accounts are consistent across all 3, in the specific details that make consistent eyewitness accounts credible. I am going to describe what he saw based on those 3 consistent accounts, accurately and without embellishment, because the accuracy is the point. Cole Nance was on the living room floor. Tyler Dunn was beside him. Tyler had a handsaw, a standard woodworking handsaw, later recovered from the apartment, and he was using it. The living room light was on. The distance from the front door to where Tyler was crouched was approximately 12 feet. Marcus stood in the doorway for what he estimated as 3 seconds. Tyler Dunn looked up. They made eye contact. Tyler Dunn said, "Marcus." 1 word. His name. Marcus ran. Marcus Reed did not close the door. He did not pick up anything. He did not try to intervene, call out, reach for his phone. He ran, immediately and instinctively and correctly, from the moment Tyler Dunn said his name. He was in the stairwell before he had consciously decided to be there. He was on the street before the adrenaline had fully registered. He was 2 blocks east, behind a car, in the shadow of a gas station, with his phone in his hand, calling 911. He had been in that doorway for 3 seconds. He had seen everything he needed to see. And he had survived because he did not hesitate. The 911 call extended. The full 911 call is 11 minutes and 42 seconds. Marcus stays on the line with the dispatcher until the first police unit arrives on Packard Street, which she confirms to him at 7 minutes and 12 seconds into the call. At that point he says, "Are they inside?" She says, "They are on scene." He says, "Is Tyler still there?" She says, "The officers are securing the apartment." He says, "I need you to tell me if they find Cole." She says, "I understand. Stay where you are. An officer will come to you." He says, "Okay." He says okay and then breathes for approximately 45 seconds in the way a person breathes when they are trying to hold something together that is threatening to come apart. The dispatcher on that call would later testify at trial. She said Marcus Reed gave her the most operationally useful 911 call she had taken from a witness to a violent crime: specific address, specific suspect name, specific description of what he had seen, confirmation that he was at a safe distance. She said he gave her all of it in the middle of what anyone could hear was an experience that would have incapacitated most people. She said she had thought about that call many times since January 19th. Deputies arrive at 11:51 p.m., 8 minutes after Marcus Reed's 911 call. The front door to the apartment is open. Marcus left it open when he ran. Deputy Alvarez enters first, followed by Deputy Kim. The living room is lit. Cole Nance is on the floor. Tyler Dunn is seated on the couch. He is not restraining Cole. He is not performing first aid. He is seated on the couch with his hands on his knees, in the posture of a person who has been waiting. He says, immediately, before either deputy speaks, "I found him like this. I was trying to help him. I didn't know what to do." Deputy Alvarez's bodycam captures his hands. They are not clean. "I found him like this." His first words when law enforcement enters the room are a statement of innocence that nobody has yet asked for. He does not say, "Help him." He does not say, "Please hurry." He says, "I found him like this." Before a deputy has spoken a word, before anyone has established what happened, before anyone has asked him anything, he is already establishing his story. That instinct to announce innocence before it has been questioned is a pattern investigators note in a specific category of suspects. The people who genuinely find someone and genuinely do not know what happened are overwhelmed by the emergency of the moment. They point, they plead, they ask for help. They do not, in the first seconds of law enforcement arrival, issue a prepared denial. Deputy Kim moves through the apartment while Alvarez maintains contact with Tyler Dunn. The living room documents the violence the 911 call described. The handsaw is on the floor, partially beneath the couch. It has not been cleaned. Deputy Kim photographs it without moving it and immediately notifies Washtenaw County Dispatch to request a homicide detective and crime scene unit. She does this within 2 minutes of entering the apartment. The scene is treated as a homicide scene from the first minute of first response, not an ambiguous injury scene, not an uncertain situation. The body cam and the saw and Cole Nance on the floor produce an unambiguous classification. Kim's radio call, requesting homicide detective and CSI unit, Packard Street address, 1 down, 1 suspect on scene, eyewitness off-site. Eyewitness off-site. That is the line in Kim's radio call that changes everything Tyler Dunn thought he had prepared for. He did not know Marcus had called 911 yet. He did not know anyone had seen him. He had been waiting on that couch, presumably in the process of constructing the story he would tell, believing the scene around him was the only evidence that existed. At 12:04 a.m. on January 20th, Washtenaw County Sheriff's Detective Carl Amaro arrived at the Packard Street apartment. At 12:11 a.m., she was briefed by Deputy Kim on the scene, Tyler Dunn's spontaneous statement, and critically the existence of an eyewitness who had called 911 from 2 blocks away and was being brought to the sheriff's office for a statement. Detective Morrow later described the specific moment she understood the full picture as the moment the case resolved from a question into a certainty. She said, "When Kim told me there was an eyewitness who had been in that doorway, I looked at the saw on the floor and I looked at the man on the couch and I understood exactly what we had." Who Tyler Dunn was. Tyler Dunn had grown up in Lansing, Michigan. He had attended 2 community colleges without completing a degree program at either. He had worked a series of IT-adjacent jobs, tech support, junior developer contracts before establishing himself as a freelance web developer operating from home. He was, by the accounts of people who had known him in other contexts, intelligent and functional in professional relationships and notably uncomfortable in domestic ones. He had lived alone for 3 years before the Packard Street arrangement. Moving in with roommates had been a financial necessity, not a preference. The investigation's examination of Tyler Dunn's devices, phone, laptop, a tablet, produced a picture of someone who had spent the 6 weeks between the original utility dispute and January 19th in a specific internal state that his digital record documented without any awareness that it was being documented. In his Notes app, 11 separate entries referencing Cole Nance, beginning as complaints about the unpaid money and escalating, in specificity and in tone, over the 6-week period. The entries do not describe planning in the explicit sense. They describe a person sitting alone in a room with a grievance that he was feeding rather than resolving, who returned to it repeatedly, who made it larger and more elaborate each time, until the $47 had become, in his own private writing, something that it was not. The 11th entry in Tyler Dunn's Notes app, dated January 14, 2023, 5 days before Cole Nance's death, does not reference money. It references, in specific terms, what Tyler describes as the resolution he intends to find. The entry is 19 words long. It was admitted into evidence at trial over defense objection. It is in the public record of Washtenaw County Circuit Court Case Number 23 CR 0841. The jury read it in full during deliberations. It requires no paraphrase. Its meaning is literal and was treated as such by every party in the courtroom. The handsaw. The handsaw recovered from the Packard Street apartment had been purchased by Tyler Dunn at a hardware store in Ann Arbor on January 17, 2023, 2 days before the homicide. The purchase was on his debit card. The receipt was in a bag in his room. He had not hidden the receipt. He had not destroyed the bag. The saw was under his couch. The forensic analysis of the saw, conducted by the Michigan State Police Crime Lab, produced tool mark and biological evidence that directly corroborated Marcus Reed's account of what it was being used for. The forensic report's conclusions were entered into evidence. The defense did not challenge the forensic analysis. January 17th. He bought it 2 days before. He had time to think about what he was going to do and what he was going to need. And then he did it. And then a man he had not accounted for came home 40 minutes early and saw his face from 12 feet away in a lit room. Marcus Reed's statement. Detective Morrow took Marcus Reed's formal statement at the sheriff's office at 1:17 a.m. on January 20th. Marcus had been brought in by Deputy Alvarez, who had found him where the dispatcher said he would be 2 blocks east, behind a car near a gas station, and had driven him in a squad car while Marcus sat in the back with his hands pressed flat against his thighs, not speaking, looking out the window. The statement took 47 minutes. Marcus described everything he had seen from the doorway in the specific sequence he had seen it. Detective Morrow asked clarifying questions about distance, lighting, duration of observation, and what Marcus had heard as well as seen. His answers were consistent, specific, and when Morrow later compared them against the physical evidence in the apartment, accurate in every verifiable detail. The distance he estimated from the door, 12 feet. The measured distance, 11 feet 8 inches. The specific item he identified, a handsaw. The item recovered, a handsaw. The position of Cole Nance, described. Consistent with the scene. Morrow signed the arrest warrant affidavit at 5:44 a.m. Tyler Dunn is arrested at 9:22 a.m. in the Packard Street apartment, where he had remained overnight. He is dressed, apparently having not slept. When Morrow enters with 2 deputies, he says, "I've been waiting." She says, "Mr. Dunn, you are under arrest for the murder of Cole Nance." He says, "I already told the officers last night what happened. I found him." Morrow says, "I understand that is the statement you gave." He is handcuffed. He has read his Miranda rights. He asks, "Is there a witness?" Morrow says, "You have the right to remain silent, Mr. Dunn." He says, "Is there a witness?" She does not answer. He is walked out of the apartment. He does not speak again until his attorney is present. Is there a witness? The question he asks not, what is the evidence? Not, I want to call my lawyer. He asks specifically whether there is a witness. He knows what a witness in that doorway means for his story. He knows what a person who saw his face from 12 feet away, in a lit room, for 3 seconds, means for the version of events he has been preparing. His first question when he is arrested is whether the thing he most needed to not exist, a living person who saw him, exists. It does. The interview room. Tyler Dunn's attorney is present. The formal interview is conducted at 2:17 p.m. Dunn maintains the account he gave in the apartment. He heard a struggle, found Cole, was trying to help when deputies arrived. Morrow places 4 items on the table in front of him, one at a time. First, a photograph of the handsaw. She says, "Do you recognize this?" He says, "I've seen it around the apartment." She places the second item, the hardware store receipt, dated January 17, with his name on the debit transaction. He looks at it for a long time. His attorney says nothing. Morrow places the third item, a printed summary of the Notes app entries, dates, and content, ending with the January 14th entry. He looks at the table. Not at the documents. At the table's surface. Then the fourth item, a one-page summary of Marcus Reed's statement. She does not read from it. She places it face up and says, "The person who was in your doorway at 11:43 p.m. last night has provided a full statement of what he observed." His attorney immediately says, "We are suspending this interview." Dunn does not move. His attorney says his name. He says, still looking at the table, "I need to think." He is not looking at any of the four documents. He is looking at the table between them as if the four pieces of paper are too heavy to approach. The charges. Tyler Dunn was charged with first-degree premeditated murder under Michigan law MCL 750.316 and one additional count of using a dangerous weapon in the commission of a felony. First-degree premeditated murder in Michigan carries a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The prosecution's case rested on four pillars: Marcus Reed's eyewitness account, the handsaw purchase receipt, the Notes app entries, and the forensic analysis connecting the physical evidence to the act described in Marcus's statement. Marcus Reed takes the stand. Marcus Reed testified on the fourth day of trial. He had been preparing for this moment for 10 months. His victim witness advocate with the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office had told him that the testimony would be difficult and that what he felt during it was normal and that he only had to answer what he was asked accurately and completely. He walked into the courtroom. He took the witness stand. He looked, for the first time since January 19, at Tyler Dunn across a room. He testified for 2 hours and 14 minutes. He described the evening of January 19 and the sequence he had been through in his 911 call, in his 1:17 a.m. statement, and in the months of living with what he had seen, the same specific details in the same accurate order. The distance. The lighting. The saw. Tyler Dunn's face when he looked up. The single word, Marcus. The run. The defense cross-examined him for 55 minutes on the limitations of 3-second doorway observation, lighting conditions, stress response effects on memory, the reliability of identification under fear. Marcus Reed answered every question in the same clear, specific, consistent register he had used throughout. He did not become confused. He did not contradict himself. He did not embellish. The cross-examination produced no inconsistency, because Marcus Reed had not said anything inconsistent since 11:44 p.m. on January 19. "I know what I saw. I know what the light was. I know where he was. I know what was in his hand. I know he looked at me. I know he said my name. I have been living inside those 3 seconds for 10 months and there is not one moment of them I am uncertain about." Marcus Reed trial testimony, People v. Dunn, November 2023. "I have been living inside those 3 seconds for 10 months. That sentence is the trial's most important line. Not a forensic conclusion. Not a legal argument. A person describing what it is to carry an unwanted, permanent, and perfectly accurate memory of the worst thing they have ever seen. He is not claiming supernatural recall. He is describing the specific way violent trauma imprints, in detail and without distortion, on the people who survive it." The verdict and sentence. Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. The jury deliberated for 8 hours across 2 days. The 8 hours were not about Marcus Reed's testimony. The foreperson stated after the verdict that the jury accepted his account without meaningful dispute. The 8 hours were about the Notes app entries and what they legally established regarding premeditation under Michigan's first-degree murder statute. On the second day, the jury found that the entries, the receipt, and the forensic evidence together satisfied the premeditation standard beyond a reasonable doubt. Tyler Dunn was sentenced to life in Michigan State Prison without the possibility of parole on February 14, 2024, by Washtenaw County Circuit Court Judge Frank Ito. The mandatory sentence structure left no discretion on the primary count. The judge exercised discretion on the weapons count, adding a consecutive term that produced the 62-year effective sentence with no parole eligibility at any point. This court sentences Tyler Dunn today for a crime against Nance, whose life deserved more than to be ended over a dispute his killer had chosen to compound by sitting alone with it for 6 weeks rather than resolving it. The court also notes, for the record, that the outcome of this case and the justice available to Nance's family depends entirely on the decision Marcus Reed made to run, to call 911, and to come back 10 months later and tell 12 people what he saw. That decision required something that the court does not take for granted. Washtenaw County Circuit Court Judge Frank Ito sentencing remarks, People v. Dunn, February 14, 2024. What makes an eyewitness account reliable? Eyewitness testimony has a complicated scientific reputation and with justification. The research on memory contamination, cross-racial identification errors, and the malleability of recall under suggestion is real and important. Defense attorneys in eyewitness cases raise these concerns appropriately, because misidentifications have contributed to wrongful convictions and that matters. But the science also identifies the conditions under which eyewitness accounts are most reliable, and Marcus Reed's account meets most of them. The observation was of a known person, not a stranger. Marcus had lived with Tyler Dunn for 5 months and knew his face as well as you know your own roommates. The lighting was adequate overhead room lighting, confirmed by the crime scene unit's documentation. The observation, while brief, was of a face looking directly at him, the most reliably encoded type of facial observation, because mutual gaze activates specific recognition pathways that brief peripheral views do not. And the account was given immediately, within 2 hours of the event, before any suggestion or contamination from other sources. None of this means eyewitness accounts are infallible. It means this particular eyewitness account carried the specific characteristics that the research literature identifies as indicators of reliability. The jury understood the distinction. So did the judge. The experience of witnessing violence. Marcus Reed has spoken publicly about what the 14 months between January 19, 2023 and the sentencing in February 2024 were like. He has described the specific quality of a memory that will not behave like other memories, that does not fade with time, that surfaces without warning, that is available in complete detail whether he wants it to be or not. He has described getting support from a trauma-specialized therapist, starting in February 2023, and what that process was and was not able to do. He has said that testimony was the hardest single thing he has ever done and that he would do it again. If you have been a witness to violence and are struggling with what that means for how you sleep, how you move through the world, what your mind does when you are not directing it, the resources are in the description. Witnessing violence is a specific category of trauma with specific treatment pathways. RAIN's National Sexual Assault Hotline also provides resources for crime victims more broadly. The Crime Victims Fund, administered by the U.S. Department of Justice, provides financial assistance for therapy and other recovery services to crime victims and their families in all 50 states. Nance. Nance was 25 years old. He had a 6-year plan written in a notebook. He played chess with his father on Sundays. He texted his mother on weekdays. He had told her, 12 days before he died, that he was thinking about finding somewhere else to live in the spring. He did not get the spring. What he got was a verdict, a sentence, a case file that documents in precise detail what was done to him and by whom, and because Marcus Reed ran and called 911 and came back, the specific public knowledge that what happened on Packard Street on January 19 was not a mystery and was not unsolved and was not allowed to be either of those things. That is the complete Tyler Dunn case. $47. 6 weeks of feeding a grievance alone in a room. A 2-day purchase and a 19-word notes app entry and a handsaw from a hardware store. And a man who came home 40 minutes early and saw everything and ran, and called 911, and showed up 10 months later to say it out loud in a courtroom. The detail I keep coming back to is the question Tyler Dunn asked when Detective Morrow arrested him. Not, what is the evidence? Not, I want my attorney. He asked, is there a witness? He knew. He had prepared for a scene that would tell its own story without him having to manage it, and he knew that a living witness in that doorway was the thing his preparation could not survive. He asked about it first because it was the only thing that mattered. And when Morrow did not answer, he knew the answer. Marcus Reed will carry what he saw for the rest of his life. That is not a dramatic statement, it is the documented, research-supported reality of what proximity to extreme violence does to the people who survive it. He carried it for 10 months before the trial. He will carry it after. The therapy he started in February 2023 is not a resolution, it is a way of learning to live alongside something that does not leave. He has said that publicly, and I want to say it here, on this channel, in front of everyone watching, what Marcus Reed did running when he needed to run, calling when he could barely talk, and walking back into a room with Tyler Dunn to say what he saw was among the most courageous things anyone in any case on this channel has done. He was not a law enforcement officer. He was not a trained investigator. He was a 24-year-old who worked restaurant shifts and came home 40 minutes early and survived the thing he walked into and then went back and told the truth about it. If this video gave you something, the investigation, the forensic detail, the specific science of eyewitness reliability, or just the understanding of what Marcus Reed did and what it cost him, please subscribe and turn on notifications. The Patreon is in the description. Drop a comment. Tell me what part of this case stayed with you. The Notes app entries? Tyler asking, is there a witness in the doorway? Marcus on the stand, I have been living inside those 3 seconds for 10 months? Judge Ito's sentencing remarks? I read every one. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one.